Sports enthusiasts, I'm Devin PiraTechnics Young, and joining me, of course, is Christy Ender Frierson. Now, Ender, I know the desk ended on a little bit more of a negative note here, saying these teams might not be making the playoffs, but the next 3 weeks is so important. Who have you got your eye on out of these two to make those improving strides?
Ooh, I mean, you have to say Unicorns. I think they've actually shown us a lot better gameplay over the last few days. But for H2k, they're only 2 games behind. We're still relatively early on into the split. So a game like this matters so much for them for turning it around.
Absolutely. Now, I'm really excited to see that Unicorns tried pulling out something a little bit different yesterday with that funnel composition. Despite it not working out, we'll see what they go with here. Remember, Neon still in the lineup. His first game on this stage was played yesterday, but we're in picks and bans with Unicorns 11 H2k. Unicorns on blue side, taking their time, and they ban away the Yasuo.
Yeah, and I think a big conversation here for H2k was, will they adapt? What are the changes going to be? And I look specifically in the bottom lane for Sheriff, because back in week 3, he played 2 games on the Xayah yesterday, brought out the Swain, was willing to experiment on some mages, and after reading that statement from H2k, I expect to see more in that direction for this team.
We'll see as the picks start unfolding, but no surprises right now with the Nocturne banned away. Also, that Aatrox permanently occupying the red side ban column. But several mages also kind of coming out Unicorn's way. Now, I wanted to say they were mid laners, then I caught myself and realized, wait a minute, we're on page 8.13. Swain's bot lane now.
Yeah, they can go just about anywhere. The 3 red side bans we're going to see so commonly on this patch. Of course, it's the Aatrox, but the other 2 very strong junglers, the 2 best junglers on this patch of the Nocturne and the Taliyah, make you start looking at picks like Sejuani a whole lot more fondly here early on in the draft.
Now, of course, this leaves open the Zoe, which Unicorns will opt to lock in. Now, this is a champion that Exileh has had mixed success on. Played it earlier on in the split at least one time, actually just a couple weeks ago, but he lost against G2 Esports. Maybe he'll have better luck this time.
Yeah, and I want to see what Selfie takes against it, because this is a player that had a really good performance even in H2k's loss yesterday and has had moments of brightness throughout the split. And we know he likes to play some assassins like the Talon. We've also seen picks like LeBlanc do very well into that champion. So if they want to save a counter pick for him, I think that could be a great opportunity for one.
Now, speaking of assassins, the Camille gets locked in, and this is something we've been seeing much more out of the jungle, but it actually hasn't been picked up by Shook this split. Maybe this is the start of that adaptation.
Absolutely. I mean, we need to see more early aggression out of the jungler for H2k. This entire meta feels like it revolves around junglers and supports roaming around the map and making plays happen. And a pick like a Rakan next to a Camille absolutely fits the bill for that.
All right, we'll see if H2k are able to make this one happen. Now it's back over to the Unicorns of Love. They've got the Zoe locked in so far. Typically, Unicorns will try to pick champions that can play around that mid lane and help Exileh out. We'll see what their jungle choice is this time around, or if they opt to save it for a little later on in the game.
Ooh, the Kindred. We have seen this matchup a few times round. I think there is room for Shook to try and bully around Kold early on. We've seen a lot of Camille's jump onto a Kindred at level 2, level 3 very early on into the game. But if we don't see that change in style out of Shook, that means free scaling on the side of Kold, which you don't want to give to that player.
Yeah, now the Mundo, speaking of free scaling, that's going to be pretty beastly for Smittyj to try and deal with. But over on the H2k side, they lock the Xayah to pair up with the Rakan. Classic combination.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of a return there to that week 3 style that we saw the Xayah and Rakan a couple of times out of H2k. But right now, my eyes are attached to the double smites from Shook and Selfie. This doesn't have to be the lovers duo in the bottom lane. It still could theoretically be a funnel strategy with Selfie on that Xayah and actually flexing that Camille up into the top lane for Smittyj.
Oh, now that would be spicy. Now H2k in their next ban phase decided to get rid of the Heimerdinger. That was what Neon took yesterday to relatively good success as well. And Unicorns for their side ban the Darius out.
This is really interesting for H2k because they can go so many different directions, but I feel like they almost have to, tell their hand a little bit here. If they did go for a mage now for Sheriff or potentially Selfie, they could still leave that level of flexibility open and see exactly what the Unicorns want to run against them before giving away what their hand is going to be.
Yeah, going to be very crucial once it enters the next pick phase. One more ban remains before we get there. Unicorns of Love, it's on their side with the Lucian banned out by H2k, targeting on the newest member of the Unicorns of Love.
That's the other question. What is Neon going to play now that the Heimerdinger is banned away? Is he going to be on mages exclusively in the bottom lane? Will he try his hand on some sort of marksman? There's a lot of different options for him.
Well, back when, if you think back to the European Masters Tournament, where the last time a lot of people would have seen Neon when he was playing for Millennium, he actually had several good Kaisa games. Ooh. I wouldn't be surprised if he took that in the bot laner role. Yeah,
it's been a little while since we've seen Kaisa actually in the bottom lane. I think other regions prefer that pick a little bit more, but there certainly is options available. H2k very likely not going to be going funnel. The Orianna we haven't seen in the bottom lane is a pretty good tell that will be Rakan down bot.
Orianna always a classic type of choice. It's going to be a little bit more of the safe laning, not so much overtly dominating laner, but pretty scary team fight when you look at what's on the plate there for H2k.
Exactly. I mean, you talk about ball delivery systems, Xayah, or rather Rakan, as well as a Camille. That is very, very powerful to set up for these mid-game team fights with that Orianna pick.
All right, so it looks like Neon is going to go for the safe choice and lock in the Ezreal. There's several playmaking supports that have been left up and available for Totoro. Which one will he go for? Crowd's getting a little excited for the Fiddlesticks. We might be in for a surprise party.
Yeah, they're just toying with our hearts here. I think they need a little bit more frontline, a little bit more CC and engage. I'd love to see an All-Star, perhaps.
Well, it may not be the cow, but as the timer ticks down, we got a Shen locked in. That is a lot of protection for what is, otherwise a fairly squishy comp if you don't count the Mundo.
Yeah, they definitely have ways to bail out players on the Unicorn side that get caught out with the Kindred and the Shen here. Now, we know it is a Mundo in the top lane, and there have been a bevy of counter picks taken against it. Things like the Singe, perhaps. I know Kennen is a pick that I really want to see come out here in Europe, but probably not going to be getting that of Smittyj.
That'd be a real squishy composition. At the end, they decide to go for the Ornn for Smittyj. That's a champion that, well, he himself has played at least once. It's been, more popular back in the spring split, but it was still dominating even, several weeks ago.
I mean, H2k, this is the team fight composition. They got the Ornn horn to really just gather everyone together on top of all of those other crowd control effects, whereas the Unicorns have a little bit more individual playmaking tools, I feel like, with Kold on that Kindred, Exileh on the Zoe. Definitely have room to find those picks in the mid-game.
All right, well, Unicorns would love if they're able to execute on that pick composition. We've seen H2k crumble under that level of resistance, but they've built themselves a terrifying team fighting composition. The question I want to pose to you, Ender, is when does this come online? It feels like the later stages of the game.
Right, H2k, you immediately say later on because they are running, a marksman in the bottom lane on that Xayah. 3 items is usually where you look for traditional crit chance carries, but Stormrazor is a decent spike as well, and I think that with champions like Camille in the early game, there is room to try and get in Kold's face and get an early advantage for Shook.
Well, we'll see if H2k are able to live by their own words. Adapt or die. This is a team that has yet to win a game in the LCS Summer Split. 0-7, desperately wanting to avoid the danger zone down there at the bottom of the standings. Unicorns of Love have 2 more wins on the board, and they're still not in a position they can be happy with, but this is where it all begins. Week 4 of the ULCS, very important for these teams to get themselves out of the dumpsters and into the playoff positions.
And of course, for H2k, last split, it was 1-7. The start of the split, and then they turned it around. They made it to playoffs. They were able to have a decent showing. They sit 0-7 at the moment. This is the game that gets them back on track, or the one maybe buries them.
You don't want to go 4 weeks of the LCS without managing to pick up a win. For H2k, desperation, crunch time already, but I like this composition. If they're able to execute it, if they're able to get those team fights that they so desperately need and avoid getting picked off by the Unicorns of Love, well, just maybe they can do it. Eyes are definitely going to be on Shook this game, too, if he can get that bully on early. As you mentioned, Camille can do to a Kindred.
Absolutely. We'll have to be tracking his early jungle pathing. I think as far as lanes that he wants to be looking at for maybe an early gank, I have my eyes on top lane. I think WhiteKnight on the Mundo is a little bit exploitable in those early levels, and if Shook is able to find a pathway around him and catch him out with the assistance of Smittyj, that's definitely a possibility for them to look for.
Looks like Shook and Smittyj move forward just for the ward. It's going to be matched by that of the Unicorns, but there will be no level 1 shenanigans just yet. I feel like Unicorns are maybe a little sick of level 1 shenanigans right now.
Yeah, no, after that game yesterday and the funnel that almost was after that level 1 invade, they're going to be wiping that out of their memory, just putting the wards down in the river. Something we see so often, especially now after the Scuttle Crab changes, because you almost know that the 2nd or 3rd camp that your opponent is going to be going for is the Scuttle Crab in the river, so having that vision down on it at the start start of the game will tell you exactly where that opposing jungler is.
Radio. Now, we check in with how this mid lane is going to go too. You mentioned the top kind of probably being one where a little more action might happen. This mid lane, if it wasn't the Orianna, I would say, okay, Exile's going to be trying to make those big plays early on, but it seems like it's going to be difficult against a champ like Orianna.
Especially because Selfie's running the cleanse, so even those sleepy bubbles aren't likely going to be able to get the kill until they burn that summoner spell. I do think, though, on the side of H2k, that once a level 6 comes around for an Orianna, there is a possibility to lock down a Zoe who typically doesn't have a great way to escape from early ganks.
Yeah. And sometimes you think, oh, I can jump out. Wait, the portal comes back.
And then she gets pulled right back.
Like,
what's up with that?
That always feels terrible. Yeah, I mean, it feels like the best way to get out of danger as Zoe is to kill everyone around you.
And it works pretty well, actually, Pyra.
Yeah, usually, despite multiple balance changes that you know all about. But let's talk a little bit more about the guy piloting the champion in just a minute, because Kold's actually going up. Looks like he's going for some Grand Theft Krugs.
Yeah, a little bit of counter jungling here, but I really like this from the Unicorns because, as I pointed out, I think that WhiteKnight is exploitable in the early game on this pick. So you have Exileh walk into the enemy Raptor camp, put down some vision. Kold is also going to be farming those Krugs, and it means that Shook won't have an opening for the next minute or two to potentially look for a gank in that top side.
You talk about WhiteKnight being exploitable. What about Smittyj? I mean, this guy's definitely had a very rough split himself. Maybe the champion matchup is going to favor him a little bit, but Smittyj definitely, we know him as more of an emotional player. I don't want to say he just tilts all the time or anything, but there's definitely the chance that if he gets set behind early, he could find himself hard-pressed to come back into the game.
Yeah, he is on the Ornn, though, so the idea behind this is you have utility regardless. Even if you do get shut down, if Kold were to find an opening up there, it would be able to contribute towards the rest of the team. It would be a mental game at that point. I think that's something that H2k have been struggling with. When you lose 7 games in the LCS, it's hard to have an optimistic outlook on the next games, but you can't fall into that trap if you're trying to make that run towards the playoffs.
Absolutely. That's why they've built a composition that, if they're able to keep their coordination, should be able to do it. But I do want to check back in on that mid lane matchup that we just saw going on in progress a moment ago, because yesterday it was a bit of an interesting strategy that the Unicorns employed. The funnel composition, as you pointed out, it was a nice try, but that level 1 really didn't help things.
Yeah, again, it goes in the spirit of how H2k are trying to adapt Unicorns of Love as well, one of the teams lower ranked on the standings. They were trying to employ something different, but it didn't quite do the damage we expected out of a traditional funnel.
Well, speaking of expecting damage, though, you got to just check in on the bottom lane, because Neon on his first stage here, or first stage LCS performance, did a pretty darn good job on the Heimerdinger. They may have not been able to pull out the win, but you know, he was able to pick up some slack.
I mean, look at that damage percentage. 40% right there on the Heimerdinger. That's more than the Xayah that was funneled. It was an impressive performance out of him coming onto the LCS stage. Now he's on a little bit different of a pick, maybe harder to have those crazy high numbers in the team fights.
Yeah, a little bit more safe. One of those marksmen that has made it through for a lot of players, despite the fact that there are more options in less traditional marksman choices.
Right, and I think the Ezreal in a game like this, when paired up with the Shen, is very much a champion that wants to, you know, be given some free time himself. His safety with that arcane shift means that Totoro can look for roams into the mid lanes or ultimates later on into the match and leave Neon down bottom lane to, you know, get by on his own.
Getting by on his own seems to not really be a problem for him right now. It's just that continued 2v2. Still, though, Unicorns have done a great job of stopping any early aggression Shook might have thought about. He's just been farming up and down the jungle as there's a taunt. Promisq is able to battle dance away. And Shook hasn't been able to get in here and punish Kold. In fact, it's Kold who's moving into H2k's jungle.
Yeah, but still, I think the lanes from H2k are going pretty well at the moment. Smittyj has got a little bit of a CS lead up on the top side. That's something you very much expect out of that matchup. And at the same time, the Lovers duo down bottom lane will almost always have that lane control. The biggest difference, as you mentioned, has been Kold inside of Shook's jungle. This is the second time he's stolen away that Krug camp, and now he's looking for a play up top side.
Okay, Smittyj could be in some trouble here at level 6 on both top lanes, but Kold has made the move to even out those odds. Smitty will walk it out, but he's forced to burn Flash in process.
And no plays out of Shook so far in the early game. Usually it's the Kindred that waits to scale on up, but it's Kold that finds the play around the top side. All this deep vision has really given Kold the ability to constantly invade towards Shook's jungle and potentially even find him here on these Raptors.
I mean, he's even putting the wards down, so this is why Shook just can't really go anywhere without being spotted. this is troubling. We need the Camille to be able to make a few plays and help out some of the laners, even though H2k's lanes haven't been terrible. Now Exileh does find himself double-teamed, has to force the flash. Promisq gave him a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, very nice roam there from Promisq. If you actually rewinded the game a minute, it was Sheriff and Promisq that used their lane priority to get that faster recall off that gave Promisq this window where he could walk into the mid lane and get that gank off without fear that Totoro would be able to match. And now that Exileh doesn't have that flash, Shook will be visiting that lane at level 6.
Speaking of visiting, Totoro, face checks the bush. There's the grand entrance, and they pull him back even though he gets the taunt over the wall. Sheriff was looking for the kill, but Neon pushed him back.
Yeah, a little bit slow there on the call back for the snare. Otherwise, that very easily could have been a kill there onto Totoro. Still, though, it forced him out of the lane right when he got back. So H2k should, again, use this window to let Promisq find another play in the mid lane.
It feels bad, man, for the Unicorns of Love support now, keeping track of the items that we already have in progress, some of that damage that Sheriff was dishing courtesy of the BF sword that he has picked up. Of course, on Neon's side, just still stacking on the tier and the pickaxe.
Sheriff will be working into that Storm Razor as the first item, something we see basically every single game the Xayah is going to be picked. But you look at those Zoe stats, this I personally believe to be the strongest mid laner on this patch, even though the win rate doesn't necessarily say it.
Let's move out of the whole funnel type
we're not
of
talking funnel.
It doesn't count when everyone else is your butler.
Yeah, we're talking real mages, none of those marksmen, none of that garbage. Talking wholesome little, demons that one-shot you with Qs and are sort of fun to play against.
So, I mean, where are we counting, like, the Talon in this? Because we saw that one yesterday. Is it in the same kind of vein? I mean, it's not exactly a funneled champion.
Talon counts as a mid laner. Even though he's taken Smite, I'll give him real mid laner for now until that strategy is taken out of the game, because I don't want to see that anymore.
Under seal of approval. But yeah, Zoe is definitely terrifying, and that's why she's such a popular champion, despite several different changes up and down, for better or for worse. Selfie's been able to hold his own, of course, against Exileh Zoe, who hasn't really had an opportunity to go for the all-in. Now he picks himself up a blue buff, a little extra mana regeneration for him.
Top lane needs to worry, though. Smittyj has had no assistance for the first 8.5 minutes of the game, and now Exileh and Kold are both making their way up here on the flashless Ornn. No flash could have a dead Ornn for just a second, gets drowsy. He is going to take a nap, and, well, it's going to be a dirt nap. First blood for Exileh. Yep, bye-bye. Now Shook, of course, has to respond with a play in the bottom lane, either look for a dive or force Neon and Totoro off of this turret, because you have to be able to trade. Because right now, Unicorns, they're trying to take the first turret of the game up topside. Some serious value words right there, spotting Shook in that river brush, in the tri-brush, so the first tower is going to fall before H2k can even make a move. Selfie wrapping around. Let's see if they can get it, and they get a combo. Quickness on Neon. He's burning down to nothing. And meanwhile, Totoro trying to buy a little extra time for the team. The teleport comes a little too late, and WhiteKnight cancels it. So H2k do pick up 2 kills for their trouble. That's a big mistake from the Unicorns bottom lane. They should know what the play is that's going on the bottom side of the map. Smittyj. Play up at the top. Here we go. The Hammer Boy bouncy time lands. Kold is going to get pushed back, and now WhiteKnight is unable to find any extra damage on it, but they're still pushing on the tier 2 turret, accelerating this one. Yeah, H2k were a little bit slow in that play on the bottom side. It did work out in the end, and they will ultimately manage to trade turrets. But the play from Unicorns, I think, was fantastic at the start, but Neon and Totoro have to recognize that they're going to lose that turret. You know there's a roam coming out from Selfie and Shook, and that no other members on your team are going to be able to bail you out of that situation. Yeah, feels like it was a little bit greedy to try and stick around thinking they'd be able to clear the wave and stick it all out, but it just did not happen. Now Exileh is able to push a wave once more into Selfie, and even joins Kold on some of this jungle stealing spree. It's been a rough game for Shook, admittedly. He's been able to participate in some of these kills, but he's had a hard time just keeping his own farm going. Right, he hasn't been finding those openings that, say, Kold has been in the top lane with his second gank coming out to success here. Easy kill with the assistance of Exileh on that play. And then, of course, in the bottom lane, this is when Neon and Totoro overstay a bit. Maybe they had the call from WhiteKnight saying, I have TP, I can save you under this turret, but that is a 4-second channel that is way too long to be able to save those guys. And but that was some good, I want to say, proactivity and reactivity from H2k to actually force that play, because typically what we've seen out of them in the early game this split, and it's no surprise when you're looking at a 0-7 team, is they're not getting leads. They're not getting objectives. They're not even getting first bloods. Yeah, the only stat they're not 10th in is turrets at 15, and that's because apparently they can trade them pretty well. But you look at some plays in this game, like the flash that was blown on Exileh after that gank from Promisq. Well, that flash is going to be coming back up, and usually the top tier teams are going to be able to punish that cooldown and revisit and find the kill, and unfortunately that hasn't been able to happen for H2k, and that opportunity has lost itself.
Yeah, now if you're wondering why there's a cooldown on Totoro's ultimate, it looks like he used it during our last replay actually to save the life of one of the players on the Unicorn side. Just giving a quick little update there. Now, H2k, meanwhile all this is happening, Unicorns are actually able to trade for Dragon and the Rift Herald. Now let's take a look at that replay once again.
Okay, so this is the mid lane. What's going on? Okay, so they did try to respond, I guess, with Selfie going for the 1v1 play in the mid, but the last second stand united. You can tell Totoro was trying to hold on to that one.
Yeah, no, nicely played actually. So Selfie does come up with a big performance up against Exileh, who's much squishier champion on this Zoe, despite being a little bit slippery. So he's going to have to watch himself. Exileh, he does have a tendency to try and go in some, and sometimes get a little punished.
Yeah, definitely does happen a bit, but this game has been really interesting so far. Even though there's just been the 3 kills off of those turret dives, the map has been entirely split. H2k playing around the bottom side with a huge lead building up on Sheriff, but UOL played top side. That meant they get the Herald and now look for the turret mid.
Yeah, that could be the difference maker right now. Extend that gold lead. Selfie knows he's not going to be able to hold the line here, so Shook coming in for a little bit of defense, but it only needs a couple more auto attacks, and down goes the mid tower. So Unicorn still in the driver's seat. This gold advantage, though, is not huge. It's only 1,000.
We have to revisit the fact that H2k's comp has been built for the team fight. They're only down 1,000 gold at the moment. If they're able to layer their ultimates and find the 5 versus 5, they should have the advantage, like here.
Oh, looks like they'll have a little bit more than that right now, and it's that Hex Deck ultimatum. Coulter's on the Lamb's respite, but I don't think he's going to be respected for very long. Maybe he actually turns it back, and
Exileh?
True Shot Barrage comes in!
What? Exileh, you demon!
That's a Zoe. 3-0 for Exileh.
Holy moly. Okay, so that just happened. The double kill with the paddle star, expertly played by him.
I need to wash my eyes. That hurt.
Everyone's biggest nightmare, seeing a Zoe in their solo queue games, is that right there.
Oh, God, Exileh. And this is what Unicorns love to do, is just get him into a position where he can make the big plays. We're going to take a look at that one more time, brought to you by Acer Predator.
Oh, please, let's just sit back, relax, take a moment to watch this, because it's finally proactivity out of Shook, making the move onto Kold inside of his own jungle. The issue is that Kold buys so much time, and then, of course, Exileh backwards with the paddle star, and boom!
What do you even say to that?
GG next.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, so Unicorns, after the dust has settled on that particular play, extend the gold lead a little bit, couple hundred, but the key difference here is that's the 3-0 Zoe. Checking in on some of the gold that Zoe's actually rocking compared to Selfie, that's a good 700-800. I mean, they're matching on items for now, but that's not going to be the case in a little bit.
Yeah, especially if Exileh continues to find these picks, because the way that the Unicorns are playing, they're using the control that Exileh has had a little bit over this mid lane to dominate this top side of the jungle so that no one can enter, and they consistently steal away those camps, chip down damage on this top lane turret, and continue to apply the pressure.
And it feels like H2k need to stop the bleeding before they can even get into a position to try and force these 5v5s that their composition is going to want to do. Unicorns, they're pushed so far forward, and there's wards at their back, there's wards at their front. There's no answer here, and Smittyj is going to get double-teamed again. Here comes the ultimate, but he's already gone.
Yeah, I mean, no one from H2k can help him. He's trying to save this turret and get minions underneath this side of the map. It's just Kold and the rest of Unicorns knowing exactly where they're strong, where they can control the map, and stopping H2k from ever responding.
Kold has really been giving Smittyj a hard time, and just in general, making really solid moves around the map. Now it looks like H2k are going to try to respond. Totoro does dodge away from Promisq's grand entrance. However, it's going to buy just enough time for Sheriff to finally sink enough of those bladed feathers in to the second tier 2 in the bottom lane. That's all H2k have gotten, those towers on the bottom side.
And here's the thing. I think H2k are still doing enough to stay in this game. It's only a 2,000 gold lead for the Unicorns. We have given H2k the advantage in the 5 versus 5. But my only concern with them is that they're always reacting to the plays. It's Kold, the diving top lane, and getting a turret, and then H2k responding by taking a turret themselves. This is what I need to see more of from them, looking for dives, looking for plays themselves.
Good death brush. Here we go. Orianna ball's on. Totoro and Neon, if they check into this one, they're actually going to taunt forward. This tower hasn't fallen yet, but here they go. And it's going to be a quickness on in the ball. And they just delete Neon off the face of the map. Exileh comes in. Sheriff gets heavily punished for being just in the wrong position. And Exileh is looking to hunt them down himself. Portal jump, there and back. They dodge it. Teleport comes in. Unicorns not sure if they want to take this fight any further. They back away.
It was so well set up there from H2k, but Exileh's like, nah, man, I still got the damage. And again, is finding these multi-man paddle stars that completely chunk H2k out of the fight and force them back even after a good play.
It's giving them a paddling for sure. H2k trying, reeling from that last one. And you can see that Smittyj has had not just a hard time up against the top laner. He's not had any help
Sheriff's
whatsoever.
In trouble.
Sheriff knows exactly what he feels like this game because it's 3-on-1, and he does get a nice root for just a second, but not nearly enough.
And we saw it earlier in the game with Smittyj. Now we see it a bit with Sheriff. One of my biggest concerns with H2k is the fact that they don't necessarily play around their vulnerable lanes well enough. It's very often you'll see them either shoving up without support from either Shook or Promisq in the area, or just finding themselves underneath the turret without any vision to let them know when the enemy team is coming. And this just continues to be an issue for them, as we see even in this game with Sheriff right there.
Yeah. Not necessarily knowing their vulnerable sides. And a lot of it does come down to the difference in even how they're warding, something as simple as that. Unicorns, you look at the minimap at any given moment this game, and there have just been so many wards all over the place giving information. Not in this case, but they did manage to punish.
Yeah, and right before this play, I believe Neon actually used the arcane shift forward, so he didn't have any way to try and dodge out of that CC chain. But there's the paddle star again. That's 100% HP Promisq that tries to tank it for his friend and almost ends up getting one shot in the process.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if H2k want to spend all of their ultimates on one or two champions, one of them better be the Zoe. Yeah. They tried to play it pick. I mean, this is a team fighting comp, but they're going for the wombo combo to try and delete one or two people off the map. They don't have a lot to follow up with. And then there's a Zoe chasing you, and we all know how that ends.
Yeah, and Exileh's got the Sheen himself, so he's going for the Lich Bane. Very much about getting in your face, dropping down the empowered auto attack for that big burst damage. And if he just finds one of these squishy members, he's going to get the one shot.
If he keeps doing this, he's probably going to upgrade to his Medjais at this point. I mean, it's kind of a high-rolling sort of champion. Now Kold finds Smittyj as he jumps forward, forcing him to dash out. Exileh wanted to find that paddle star, but he's out of there, and Command Protect was on as well.
And now Smittyj doesn't have the flash again, so I foresee another dive onto him in the near future.
Oh, really?
Of course, the Baron buff is going to be spawning.
How could you ever see something like that coming?
I don't know. We've seen it enough this game, Pyra.
It's true. Empirical evidence suggests. But Smittyj, as you pointed out early in the game, like on this Ornn, he still has ways to be useful. He's got himself an Iceborne Gauntlet as well. Now, Totoro is looking to check in to this blue buff take here as Promisq throws down the quickness. There's a couple of taunts left, right, and center, but Neon's here as well. They're actually going to be fighting for it. Tower falls in the top. H2k actually kind of get the jump on Unicorns here.
But again, the map is entirely split, just like we've been seeing all game, and Smittyj has to back away from this turret because he knows Kold and Exileh can rotate over in just the snap of a finger, and he loses his own turret.
Yeah, well, we have been seeing roughly half of H2k getting deleted at any given point. It's scary because not only do you have the Zoe to contend with, WhiteKnight has not been punished this game because he's the one who got the jungle attention, as opposed to Smittyj, who had a better matchup. I mean, this always goes back to the early game and the fact that H2k weren't able to do enough.
Exactly, because when we were looking at H2k at the start, it was like, oh, well, Shook, he can maybe make a play up topside, shut this Mundo down before he reaches level 6, maybe get a kill, because Smittyj has a lot of support to help him out in that play, and he can also bully around Kold if he ever finds Kold. What does Kold say to that? He splits the entire map, so he never has to 1v1 Shook. He controls the top side, so WhiteKnight is never going to be in a situation where he can be punished, and he destroys Smittyj.
Smart moves, and this is what's making the difference right now. Now, it's worth pointing out that H2k are not incredibly far behind in the gold game, for instance. They have been able to secure a number of towers. Like, it's not doom and gloom for these guys, and all they need is one good fight. But Unicorns are playing so smart in not giving them the straight-up open 5v5.
Exactly. Unicorns would very much rather be all around the map, abusing vision to look for picks with Exileh, dodging around these full-fledged fights. But H2k, they've got some important items. Rapid Fire Cannon, finished for Sheriff. Morella Nomicon, finished for Selfie. These are some spikes that we can start to look at them and be like, well, H2k, now you can actually force something yourself.
Yes, indeed. Now, speaking of forcing things, there are several objectives that are going to become a little bit more viable on the map quite soon. It's Baron, of course, for the last minute and a half. Next Dragon will be Infernal. That's an important one for both teams to try and pick up for the extra late game damage. But another objective for H2k is staying alive.
And that's not easy when Exile's in your face, especially just tossing out all these spells. But the way the map has broken up, it's H2k with control around this Baron. That's important for them, even though right now Unicorns have so much pressure on the bottom side of the map.
Yeah, talk about pressure. Mundo's just pushing in. Like, he's so far forward, and he just doesn't have to care. This is where that joke comes from. He goes where he pleases for a very good reason.
That is absolutely wild. UOL are a little concerned, though. Maybe a Baron has been started up, but H2k definitely don't have the confidence to do that themselves.
Now, chasing them away for the time being. Remember, H2k, as this game goes further and further on, you have to wonder the mental effect. If you see yourself losing yet another game, you go 4 weeks without a win in the LCS. How do you bounce back from that? They had to make drastic changes the last time this happened.
It was the Shook effect. Now we need Shook himself.
To affect the game.
To affect the game. We need something new out of him. That time has somewhat passed for now. It's up to him and up to Promisq to find the engagements and set up the map so that they can make these plays. But the Unicorns, now they don't even have to play around Smittyj. We're looking for the fight.
Okay, Promisq, he did look for Exileh. Unfortunately for him, Exileh had his flash up and available, and now the tables have turned.
Oh!
Exileh! That's just so gross.
He's just doing it all himself. Now there's no Rakan on the side of H2k. Unicorns maybe a little bit hesitant to start up the Baron, but they can sit in the Fog of War and just pick off anyone from H2k that tries to enter.
Like that.
Okay.
Ender, when did the Balance team add an Infinity Gauntlet to the game?
I don't know, but Exileh certainly has it.
Yeah, it looks like Baron's going to be going down in not too long as well, but H2k aren't keen to give this one over for free. The problem is you face check the Paddle Star coming for you every time. Totoro has the taunt. Here comes Exileh round the side. Paddle Star misses. Doesn't matter right now. H2k are routed, trying desperately to run away, but the Ornn has fallen asleep. Wakes himself right back up. Promisq has respawned. And H2k gather their strength, but they've got it back to base, recover. It looks like Baron attempt number 2 is on its way.
I mean, Shook and Selfie are both solo. Shook actually went back into the base, so the Baron does go down relatively slowly, but they definitely have enough time, and H2k are not trying to contest it.
Okay, already down to half its health. Not much H2k can do. So this one will go the way of the Unicorns of Love. Another 15 seconds, there'll be an Infernal Dragon on the map, but for 3.5 minutes, Unicorns of Love are looking like H2k's worst nightmare.
Unicorns are in the best position possible with a composition like this, sieging down with the one-shot potential of the Zoe, throwing out the bubbles, looking for picks. Makes it so hard for H2k to ever step up to the turret and try to wave clear. They are set up around this Infernal Drake right now with actually Sheriff teleporting in. They really want this objective.
Yeah, this can help them in the later stages of the game for sure. Just be ready on that smite. It's going to get taken by Shook, and now Unicorn's a little slower to react. Do they want to force this fight with the Baron? No. Exileh, I thought he burned flash. I'm like, wait a minute, that's Zoe's spell thief, isn't it?
Yep, just pick him up all over the place. But now Unicorns, they have control over the middle lane. And right now, Promisq is waiting on the flank. I think H2k might try to fight this.
They might. They have ultimates up and available. Every one of them has it. Let's see if Unicorn's drawn into the trap here. They are stacked as 5 members, but H2k not feeling confident just yet. Trying to get back to the base, going in through the gates. Keep an eye on Promisq, though.
Yeah, I mean, H2k have to force a fight here. It almost looked like they did get back to the turret in time to clear away the minion waves, but the next wave will be coming soon.
Oh, what? Neon!
Okay.
Okay, we thought that might be a Zoe, but no. We're going to have to watch that one again.
I mean, Promisq was trying to find the flank. There's a lot of blue vision, though, spotting out his pathway. And now it's a 5 versus 4. No Rakan on the side of H2k. This inhibitor's going down.
Yep, easy peasy. They've got enough wave clear, and they can just cut through the objectives. Unicorns of Love. Well, they don't need no Infernal Dragon to try and do that much damage. 25 minutes in, they've broken open the base of H2k. And we'll see if they've broken their will as well.
It's going to be so tough now that the gold lead has started ballooning for the Unicorns, up almost 7,000 at the moment. Big items coming through for them as well. Second, working on third. Once Exileh gets that Rabadon's death cap, I mean, you thought he was scary already. It's going to get even worse for the side of H2k, but that being said, I feel like they can't lose any confidence, because when you draft a team like this, you're not looking to, wait around and seed a lot of towers or anything like this. You're trying to find the fights with a flank from perhaps a Rakan, but
you can't hesitate. And that's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, he waited around there for 30+ seconds. H2k weren't sure if they wanted to fight or if they didn't. And when the rest of the team called back, Promisq was sort of left out to dry.
Well, the scary thing about that is Neon's the guy that was getting bullied earlier this game.
Yeah.
You know what happens? You know what happens when the guys you bully grow up?
They make a lot more money than you do.
Yeah, and look at all that, look at what he's bought with all that money.
Oh man, working on that. Blade Throwing King, of course, more duration on this Baron. They've got a few more waves they get to work with here on the side of the Unicorns. Maybe a little bit difficult to knock down this turret, but all it takes is one sleepy bubble into a lot of damage to force H2k away from the turret.
Or just Mundo walking through the base, like a leisurely stroll.
Mundo goes where he pleases.
That was a pretty good impression.
Was it? I try my best.
I mean, I'm trying to be nice, but yeah.
I've got confirmation that it was okay from our producer, so here we go, you
Excellent, always a work in progress. They didn't need to find the Sleepy Trouble bubble, though. Instead, they just needed to find their way into the base. H2k slowly backing away, and yes, I see that damage grab. I think everyone sees that damage grab. You can see that thing from space. You know, I checked in on the AP. You can see it in the bottom left corner right now. Exileh's got just shy of 350. 349 on the AP, and he's doing that much damage.
Yeah, I'm like, that number doesn't even feel like it's that high.
It's deceptive.
But Zoe still does nasty, nasty things. Double needlessly large rods now.
We know what's coming next.
Lots of damage.
Lots of damage. Would you say tons?
Nope. That would be coming out of Neon.
Ah.
The Trinity Force.
Oh, good point. Yeah, good point. Exileh's not built that item.
But maybe he should. He's got a Lich Bane, it's just
It's like, why not at this point?
Yeah, you know, you can do whatever you want. On hit Zoe, maybe the wave of the future, but Unicorns, it's the victory lap right now. It really does feel like 8,000 gold in the advantage. They don't have a Baron buff, but with 2 inhibitors down on the side of H2k, it becomes now or never. They will be forced to go for a fight or risk losing 3 inhibitors.
Well, the last time, it seemed like they hesitated for a little too long. Promisq, it was a nice try to flank. I mean, it's not like these guys are doing nothing to set up these plays. They're just not pulling the trigger. And they're spotted consistently. Sheriff this time in the brush gets spotted out by the blue trinket pop. And they just need to be able to secure this flank. But Unicorns are playing this out, dare I say, clinically. They've yet to make those big mistakes that has sunk them in the past against better teams.
It's been really, really good. Very methodical out of them, especially Kold setting it up. Here we go!
All right, trying to go in, and here comes the Ornn Horns. Exileh is going to go golden, but Totoro is actually going to fall. The Lamster Spike comes down. WhiteKnight flanking around the side. Maybe this is the chance for the 5-man stack of H2k to find the fight that they need. Crucially, Selfie holding on.
Very important, just buying time for those inhibitors to respawn on the side of H2k. With Baron buff coming up in 2 minutes, they can try to use this time. They have 20 more seconds to go put down some vision inside their own jungle. That's really what they need to be doing in this situation, because it's very unlikely that they get this opportunity before that objective spawns again.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. And in the meantime, they're going to have to be dodging, you know, just about everything. I actually heard in my ears from production a minute ago that Exileh is dishing about 900 damage per paddle star.
That hurts.
Yeah.
That is a lot of damage when most characters only have a little bit more than that. 2 paddle stars probably does the trick, but if you put a Sleepy Bubble on top of it, it does a whole lot more. Exileh, of course, goes very far forward, and when you have to start that Sand United channel from Totoro, it did leave him in a tough position, even though he managed to save his mid laner.
But despite a mistake from Unicorns, and, you know, call it the caster curse if you will, because I was just talking about how they hadn't made these critical mistakes that have sometimes sunk Unicorns from ahead. They still have a significant gold lead. They still have these 2 inhibitors on the bottom. They can still push into the enemy jungle with impunity.
Every time I see a bubble land, I'm like, oh man, that dude's dead. But luckily, Exileh wasn't able to go forward. Important for H2k, though, is the fact that Sheriff now has the Infinity Edge. A Void Staff is also completed on towards Selfie, so where he went for a little bit cheaper itemization, he has that spike, while Exileh won't be able to finish off that Rabadon's, it doesn't feel like, before that Baron spawns.
Right, and, you know, Battlestar's not the only massive damage spell in the game. Like, if Selfie can land a big shockwave, so far we've only seen him landed on a handful of champions, 1 or 2 at most. If he can get Unicorns of Love grouped up, force this 5v5, this is the point where they might be able to take the fight. Here comes the Ornn Horns once again. They found WhiteKnight, actually. The Hextech Ultimatum is in. Promisq has actually gone in. They're going to go ahead and delete Kold off the map, but there's still Exileh, Totoro, and WhiteKnight all to contend with. Neon actually comes in and joins the fray. There is no Orianna Shockwave available, but they have deleted Kold off the map for now.
H2k did what they needed to do, but they can't immediately move into the Baron because there's super minions on top of their Nexus turrets at the moment, and the Unicorns can continue to play forward even without their jungler.
Despite the fact that H2k have actually come up with a kill, Unicorns might actually be able to go for the Baron right now because there's no one here to try and defend it. Everyone's on cleanup duty.
And it's Shook that went back to the base. They still might end up losing this turret.
Oh,
it goes
no!
down, and now there's no smite to contest this Baron.
I don't know if that trade was worth anymore.
I don't think it was, and Exileh can just solo zone away. He burns the ultimate out of the Xayah. Unicorns, they lost Kold, but it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, they're going to get the Baron anyways. Who needs Smite? Slow take, easy.
Not the Unicorns, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, they just let the Mundo do it.
He's doing everything this game, man.
He's literally
0-0-3, but he's popping off.
I mean, that's pretty much popping up. At this point, he can just leave Burning Agony on like 24/7.
Yeah. And we were talking about item spikes for H2k. They had a window where they maybe had an advantage or could at least go toe-to-toe with the Unicorns, but now with that Rabadon's finished from Exileh, the damage is probably going to be a little bit more than 900 coming out of him.
Yeah, taking a look at the AP count once more, now it's up to 567. So you do the math at home. This is going to hurt. Now H2k, they have one inhibitor spawned back up. They're out of position right now with the Unicorns now pushing with the Baron-empowered wave of minions. As 5, Totoro hanging on the backside in case he needs to pop that Stand United from a safer distance. H2k desperately trying to hang on, desperately trying to avoid going 0-8 in the Summer Split.
It comes down to Promisq and Selfie. How well can they combine the power of their ultimates? The Shockwave needs to hit onto 3 or more members. Has to find a member like Exileh or Kold or Neon. Otherwise, Unicorn should be able to walk into this space with the Baron, but remember, H2k have no turrets left defending their Nexus, so they need to keep control over these inhibitors.
They've managed to hold the line for now. Still, Baron buff for a couple more minutes is still going to be happening. Now, there is a split push effectively going on with Exileh and Totoro moving up towards the top. But H2k, as long as they can keep their base clean, they can get a reset. They need to outlast this Baron buff. They need to let that inhibitor come back up. It just does in the bottom. It's tough, but they haven't lost the game just yet.
And this is a game that H2k, it feels like they have to win this. They can't go 0-8 in the split. That's the Ornn, we're going in.
All right, they have managed to find one. Let's see if they get the damage. Promisq is not going to fall just yet. Excuse me. He manages to make it out with the Lamb's Respite, but Exileh dies. That is the linchpin. Can H2k turn this fight? Unicorns seem to have enough left in the tank to just keep moving. Smittyj trying to walk it out, and he's able to hang tough for just now. WhiteKnight still burning, but he's not going to be going down just yet. Sheriff flashing forward. He gets deleted by Neon. Goes too far, and now the fight is turned once again. Taunts are flying left, right, center. Totoro claims the kill on Smittyj. H2k see their hopes and dreams evaporating. 3 members still standing, but Unicorns, well, they've got 4.
H2k almost had it, but Neon turns it around there on towards Sheriff, and now the Unicorns, they're going for the Nexus.
It is all Nexus, but Promisq, Shook, and Selfie have all healed up. Can they take the kill? They can. Shook, he's got Kold down. There's no ultimates. Promisq is going to melt as well. It is a 2v3. Totoro barely in this fight, but Neon's able to pick up the double, looking for Selfie, trying to get back to the fountain. He walks it out, but can he stop all 3? That Nexus is not looking too healthy, and the Unicorns have done it.
Exileh might have had all those highlight moments, but it was Neon in the clutch, stepping up for the Unicorns of Love, winning them that last team fight and taking down the Nexus.
Every game is a team effort. You can have your superstar, but when he falls, who are you going to look to? Well, that was a big, bright Neon sign.
Yeah, I mean, it was Neon who didn't receive any support in the early game. Kold was playing entirely around the top side of the map, but it doesn't matter. He holds his own and comes up when it matters most.
He certainly does. Give him a lot of credit slotting into this team, working well. Excellent job by the Unicorns bot lane substitute, now improving 1-1 as his personal record in the LCS. And for the Unicorns of Love, they improved to 3-5.
Yep, stepping their way towards playoffs. That's the grind at the end of the day. One of those teams competing for the 5th and 6th places, it seems, at the moment. And honestly, that game felt really commanding out of them. I think Kold's performance in the early game was absolutely fantastic, limiting the abilities for H2k to make early plays. And after that, it was all about the carries stepping up and taking them across the finish line.
I like the description, commanding, because Unicorns have had struggles trying to control the pace, trying to not necessarily give in to the team fighting instincts that they had honed over the years as an org and even some of these individual players. It was a solid level of team play. Was it without mistakes? No. But they were able to recover from them well because they set themselves up for success every step of the way.
And there were very few mistakes, too. I think in the past we've seen Unicorns been able to find early advantages similar to the one they found in this game, but struggled to translate that, really grasping at straws at figuring out what is the next play they need to make. And this game, Kold, Exileh, they just told Unicorns exactly where to be on the map and just choked H2k out of this one.
So no, we talked a lot about the team performance too, but let's be honest. Let's go back to Exileh's performance on Zoe. You can't get enough of this.
I mean, we've seen some crazy Zoe play already in the UOL CS, but this is one of the best clips I have seen yet. The double paddle star, the sweet view, bada bing, bada boom.
It's not over yet here. We're going to take a look at another one. I mean, do you think it's fine with the sleepy trouble not landing and Promisq goes in? Wait just a second.
Because there's a lot of damage that comes through off of this. Instantly blows him up. I believe that one ended up leading into a Baron a little bit down the road, and the train from Unicorns could not be stopped.
No, it could not. And I think for Promisq, the promise of the Q was death that time, unfortunately for him. Now, I am curious to know, who is you guys' player of the game? You can give me your answer at LOL Esports on Twitter. Your options are Exileh, Kold, and WhiteKnight. Obviously, flashy plays count for something, but I mean, everyone had a role to play. That
would be a very close call between all of those players. I think they all had a lot of great moments in that match.
They certainly did. Now, yesterday, Nukeduck was a monster on the Kai'Sa, but now he and Schalke are facing a tough challenge against Splyce. Before that, Kold will be joining Shax and Divicio, so don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Deck ultimatum. Coulter's on the Lamb's respite, but I don't think he's going to be respected for very long. Maybe he actually turns it back and
What? They're actually going to taunt forward. This tower hasn't fallen yet, but here they go. And it's going to be a quickness on in the bubble. They just delete Neon off the face of the map. WhiteKnight, actually. The Hextech ultimatum is in. Promisq has actually gone in. They're going to go ahead and delete Kold off the map, but there's still Exileh, Totoro, and WhiteKnight all to contend with just yet. Sheriff flashing forward. He gets deleted by Neon. Goes too far, and now the fight is turned once again. Taunts are flying left, right, center. He walks it out, but can he stop all three? That Nexus is not looking too healthy, and the Unicorns have done